Good evening. This is Tyler Steves from Wilder Future, and tonight I have a very special guest. His name is Louis De Jaeger, and he is a regenerative enthusiast, award-winning filmmaker, author, and business owner, doing landscape architecture and design. And again, you're here on Wilder Future, where we look at the bleeding edge of science, technology, and innovation for a regenerative future. Louis, welcome to the program.
Hey, Tyler. Super happy to be here in Ontario.
Awesome. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can get into today, but I wanted to start off with maybe looking at this is kind of out there, but Gaia hypothesis. I recently was looking at one of the podcasts that you did, and I can't help but agree. When you look at the exceptional complexity of the planet, it does seem like there's something going on. I mean, how is it possible that it's so perfect? I mean, off by a little degree, we wouldn't have seasons. I mean, it's to keep a ball that's spinning in space, hot from a fire that's millions of miles away. I mean, it really is something exceptional. So maybe talk to me about Gaia theory. We can start off with the most out there, and then we can get into
Yeah,
more.
no, I really love it that you go into very meta and very macro scale. And it's indeed so miraculous that we even have life on this planet. It's like you say, we have a special tilt on this planet, which makes sure that we have seasons. We have the moon. That's like a coincidence, you know. First of all, the Earth was turning around together with another planet called Theia, and they were like two lovers, like flirting with each other. They were like attracted to each other, and one day they like boom, the attraction was too hard, and they like bumped into each other. They made love, and then a little child was born, and that child was the moon. So it's actually something that a lot of people don't realize, that this moon actually keeps us in balance. If the moon wouldn't be there, we would be like wobbling around. Our tilt would not stay the same, and we'd be turning from like an ice ball toward like a hellhole because it would be too warm. So it's so crazy. And when people start to talk about the climate or about biodiversity or nature, it's like super important to realize how complex it is. Like 1 inch wrong or 1 centimeter wrong, and it could all be dying. And so we have to be grateful for that. And the question is, the Gaia hypothesis, what does it mean? The hypothesis actually says that the Earth itself is one big living organism. And you could say that it's like this. If you would not agree with that, you also cannot say that you are a human or I am a human, because we are what we are saying about the Earth as being one giant superorganism. We are the same. You know, more than half of our cells as a human being are not even human. They're bacteria, they're fungi, and these are the ones that actually are keeping us healthy. You know that 90% of our happiness hormone is created in our gut. So it's our serotonin, and it's all thanks to all these little creatures living in our guts. They're the ones keeping us healthy. Also, they're the ones preventing chronic disease. And if you look at chronic disease, it's really on the rise. 1 in every 3 persons in the Western world almost has a chronic disease, and most of it originates in the human gut. So we are like just one big superorganism, and the Earth is as well, because we have trees that suck up water from the soil, that suck out of CO2 from the atmosphere, and something you cannot see, CO2, with something you can see every day, water. If you mix them together, you get sugars. And with these sugars, they inject it in the soil, up to sometimes 40% of all the food they create, the sugars. I often compare it with pancake dough. They inject it in the soil, they throw a massive pancake party, and it attracts microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and they give food that would otherwise not be accessible for those plants. So it's like this beautiful exchange system. So a tree doesn't exist on its own. It only exists because of bacteria and fungi in the soil. And so that's the underground part, which is like incredible and very miraculous. But you also have the above ground part, and that's something that people like don't realize. But trees actually make it rain. They create rain. They send out little aerosols, little particles, bacteria, fungi. They project it into the air. And what happens if there is a cloud passing by? These little particles form like this little nuclei, these little centers where a raindrop can like attach to, then it will become heavy and above it will fall. So that's only one part. Another part is that trees also cool the planet. We all know that if we are sweating, then our water that's like under our armpits, it will evaporate. But this evaporation process takes heat from the air into the vapor, because you need heat to create vapor. And then the warm air will rise from your armpits, in our case, or from the trees, the leaves in the case of the forest, or just regular trees in your garden. So when you then like take this warmth into this water vapor will rise. And if you have a lot of trees, a lot of warmth air will rise just like an air balloon, a hot air balloon. And because of this air rising, you actually create a low pressure zone above the trees. And a low pressure zone, what does it do? It attracts clouds. So with creating this low pressure zone, it's like a giant vacuum that like sucks the clouds from the sea, land inwards, and then you'll get this rain from the sea to the land thanks to these trees. And up to like sometimes 1 in every 2 drops of rain that falls on the ground is actually created by a tree and doesn't come from the sea. We don't know that. So that's only a very small part to show you how massively everything is connected with each other. And I could like talk for days about all these beautiful things, but if you only start to understand a little bit of it, then you know that we have to take care not only for our planet, but also for our human health, because we're not even human. We need to take care of our little animals that keep us healthy.
100%. I mean, and that's so linked to a lot of the work that you do around quality of food, because as you said, we are, and the estimates seem to change, but a large percentage of our selves is not actually from our own being. Like we're made up of all these little, microbes, and we're more of an amalgam than we
Yeah,
are one thing. And when
100%.
we look at our happiness, that was a really, really great point you just made. Our microbiota in our gut is extremely important, maybe the most important, as you say, for making us happy. And then let's look at our food, and let's look at things like depression, anxiety, and mental health issues that are on the rise like crazy, chronic obesity. I mean, there is so much wrong with modernity in the Western world. And maybe that could also tie into some of the work that you do, if that strikes anything for you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, there is this old saying that says, oh, or you treat your food as your medicine, or medicine will become your food. And that's 100% true. I always say that the farmers of the future, there are pharmacists. So pharmacist, haha. uh, because if you eat really healthy food that comes from a healthy living soil, then you have your immunity. I wouldn't say that you'll never get the flu, of course, but a lot of things can be prevented with healthy food. I know literally dozens of people who had a chronic illness, who are even terminally ill, and who just by really saying, okay, now I'm going to do everything I can to eat the best food out there, that healed themselves. Some of them are partly healed, some of them are like 100% healed. And like these are these stories you cannot really believe the first time you hear them. But food is medicine, and we have to embrace that fact. And I always laugh with the fact that we teach our kids the story of Snow White. What do you learn as a kid? Well, don't take a poisonous apple, right? That's like a thing you should remember from that story. But if you go to a supermarket today, you have up to like 25 different residues of pesticides on just one apple. And there is no scientist in the world that's willing to bet with me and say, okay, I'm going to give you $100 million in 30 years if this cocktail effect was not proven to be harmful. So right now, we just cannot prove what the effect is of 30 different pesticides having this cocktail effect with each other. It's just too complex to prove how harmful it is. But I'm only going to give like one example, and that's glyphosate. It's one of the most debated pesticide out there. But like every year, there are studies coming out to say how carcinogenic it is. And only like a couple of months ago, there was a study that came out that says even in a very small doses, it's already carcinogenic, and it's so already poisoning us. I had a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture not too long ago, and he asked me, yeah, Louis, but don't you think it's a bit extreme if you're like saying that's like you're poisoning yourself with every bite you take? And I said, yeah, well, I agree that we should not like spread panic words, spread panic and make people too much afraid. That's the first thing I said. But the second thing I said was, but we are in fact poisoning ourselves with every bite we're eating. And you can like scientifically prove it black on white. There is really no doubt about it. Take only glyphosate, for example. It's about 80% of all our breakfast cereals, 70, 80, 90% of all our breads that have traces of this glyphosate in it. And that alone is shown to really harm your gut microbiome. It's you're poisoning all these little bacteria that are there to help you and to keep you healthy. To give you one example, we all know the leaky gut syndrome, or we have heard of it. What does it mean? Our gut is like this giant pipe with all little holes in it, perforated. It's perfectly normal. And a healthy gut, you have a liner on all these holes of bacteria. So these bacteria form a natural liner to make sure you don't have any leaks. What happens if you start to poison these bacteria? Or they will die, or they will go away. And then you'll have open spaces where these holes can actually leak. And so that's only one example of a chronic disease that's so obvious, but and linked to the use of glyphosate, that we should really go to an agriculture without any chemicals. And I don't say that we have to do it from today until tomorrow. I know it takes time. Farming is not easy. I've done it myself. I know it's very hard. So you have to give farmers the time, and you have to incentivize them, do a lot of trainings. We've been giving trainers to farmers to make a transition. And we've seen that they do not only have less diarrhea and headaches because they don't spray as often as they did before, but they save a lot of money too. So I know farmers that can buy a new Mercedes-Benz every year because of the money they save on pesticide costs alone. So that's huge. And so it's not only about our health, but it's also about the income of the farmer. And sometimes it can get very political, these discussions, but I always compare it with the following. We have a landscape architecture firm, so we design little gardens until entire private islands, ranches. We do a lot of hotels, a lot of eco resorts. And we have clients that are regular Janes and Joes, but we also have clients who are billionaires. We have clients who are atheists, who are very religious, who are left, who are right, people who think differently, different cultures, but they all have one thing in common, and that is they want to be happy and they want to be healthy. They want their kids to be happy. They want their kids to be healthy. Those are like the two things, happiness and health, that connect us all. And that's all connected via the food we eat and via the soil where this comes from. And when you know this, then that's something you cannot discuss about. I sometimes ask, like when I give a keynote, well, who wants to poison their children? Put your hand in the air. Nobody puts their hand in the air, unless somebody who's really fed up with their kid. But most of the time, it's not the case.
Okay, so there are so many places we can go with this. One that I think is interesting is you mentioned that, farmers aren't excited about this use of pesticide. And one of the podcasts you did, you mentioned that you'd actually heard of farmers getting impotence from
Yeah.
pesticide use. Tell me about that.
It's incredible. Like I do a lot of advocacy work. I write books, make documentaries. So it's my job to make sure that we save the human race, literally. But if we don't solve it, it will solve itself. Because if you look at the rate of infertility that's going up in 100 years, we're not going to be able to reproduce ourselves. It's as simple as this. It's I think more than 1% rise per year that we become more and more infertile. It's our sperm count, but it's also women who can't conceive anymore. It's because of this pesticide usage. And if you look at the countryside and cities, it's much higher on the countryside. where you have this impotence that's growing, and that's 100% linked to the use of pesticides. And it's not only impotence, but it's also autistic children. It's also neurological disorders. It's also when you're pregnant as a woman, and you're more exposed to pesticides, you have more chance to get a baby boy that has hypospadias or cryptorchidity, which is a difficult word to say, that you'll have a misformed penis because of hormone disruptors, which are in pesticides, but also disrupt our own hormones. And with these hormone disruptors, or with a very difficult word, endocrine disruptors, it is not the dosage that makes the poison. It's sometimes the smaller the dose, the higher the poison. So that's something terrifying. They did a lot research on frogs changing sexes, so boys becoming girls or vice versa, and they saw that the smaller the dosage, the more effect it had. So that's putting everything upside down, and a lot of people don't know this. That they say, okay, I'm gonna wash it off. First of all, if you're washing your vegetables, pesticides will never go out because they're inside of your apple. So it helps a little bit, but like, just buy organic apples or find a farmer who doesn't spray. And especially with pregnant women, we all know by now that we should not smoke and we should not drink during pregnancy. It's very widespread, this knowledge. Well, the next thing on that list, and we're working on that, by the way, is eat organic, eat pesticide-free food. Because there are so many studies that show how disastrous it can be for your kid. And that's something that as a mother you should know, but also as a father or as a wannabe father. Let's say I would like to have a baby in 9 months, or I would like to impregnate my lady in 9 months better, then it's already good. Like 1 year before pregnancy, start to eat organic. It will have a huge influence on the quality of your sperm, but also on the quality of your female body, to actually prepare yourself for pregnancy. I know sometimes it's like it comes unprepared, but then when you know it from day one, you know that you're pregnant. It's like, okay, but switch to organic.
Okay, this actually is going in one of the things that I thought was going to be a big problem. I know is a big problem is the lack of resiliency in our modern farming practices. If you look at Monsanto, you look at the fact that you have this economic paradigm where, I mean, it just makes sense. You want monopoly. You want to control the supply chain. And so you make hyper-productive variants of whatever food you make, and then you need to block competition. And so you block competition by making the seeds themselves infertile. That itself, I feel, just at a gut level, it doesn't feel great to me to be eating infertile food, but let's assume that that's okay. It still creates a huge resiliency problem where there's this massive dependency where if you want economic farming, you are now kind of golden handcuffed to these companies. Um, but the stuff you're talking about terrifies me. I mean, that sounds even worse than the also very bad thing, which is the total lack of resiliency, and the most important thing, which is our food supply.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also a bit strange, I think, and also brilliant at the same time, that you have these companies that are selling pesticides that cause certain diseases with humans, but they also sell the medicine that treats those same diseases.
Good business,
And
isn't
uh,
it?
it's brilliant, you know. If I were not ethical, I would say fantastic. But I think we have this kind of responsibility to do good for our children and for humanity, and it's just criminal, you know. I'm not gonna name any names here, but we all know who we're talking about. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, for example, is one of the diseases that's caused by pesticides and is treated by the exact same companies who are producing these pesticides. So, yeah, we should do something about it. And when I was younger, I was often very angry at these big pesticide companies and seed companies, and I still am. But I'm also now I'm starting to become angry, or yeah, a bit sad that we as citizens let it happen. We are letting it happen. Like, we could open our mouths, you know. We could write letters to our politicians. Um, our politicians, they're our employees. We pay them to defend our rights. The problem just is, and it's simple hypnosis actually. If you're a politician and you get every day so much emails and encounters and lunches and dinners and conferences with lobbyists, which happens a lot. And they're most of the time super friendly people. I've met lobbyists like one of the friendliest people out there. It's also their job to be friendly. And they keep on telling, yeah, but if you stop the pesticides usage, you won't be able to feed the world. Farmers will become angry. They will take their tractors and come to the big cities to block all the highways. So they're spreading all this misinformation as well. For example, we're not going to be able to feed the world. This is the biggest BS out there, for example. There are a lot of other myths they use. And then politicians hear that and they're like, okay. And often in some countries, they also receive donations of certain groups. So that also doesn't help. So we as citizens need to group ourselves, and we need to do a counter message. We need to become citizen lobbyists. It's not hard to become a citizen lobbyist. You can actually just look up for the email of your local politician and just write an email or write a letter or ask for a meeting with your local mayor or local representative. Most of the time it's possible to do that. And if enough people will do that, then they'll have to listen. But we're just having it super easy. We can lay down in our sofa, watch Netflix, have a fridge next to it, and just, we have something that looks like an apple, and apples are healthy, right? That's what we know. We like to ignore the fact that it has been poisoned, and it's like not having an effect immediately. And that's something we humans, it's difficult for us to understand that, okay, first we need to eat apples until we're 60 years old that are poisonous, and then we're gonna get cancer. It's the same with smokers. They're like, oh, but I don't have a problem smoking right now, until they're 65, and then they get cancer or get like a lot of horrifying things that I'm not gonna bring up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. There is a huge incentive and a certain amount of uh, sense that the pesticide makers are making. They're saying, look, it's easier to grow high density food in subpar conditions in this way. And they're not totally wrong. I mean, it is easier. I mean, you've created this problem, and this is a solution that meets the satellite problems of the main problem without ever really addressing the main problem. And we're getting further and further away. So we could probably talk doom and gloom all day, but tell me about some of the work you're doing that's actually making things better.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make this little bridge by answering also or addressing the previous thing you just said. So what happens now is that if we get drunk and the next day we have a headache, we just take painkiller and we continue. And then the same evening we drink again, and the next day we take another painkiller, and we can keep on going on. And it's super convenient. And I often compare it with that we have a lot of leaky roofs. Like, a lot of the soils are now dead, toxic grounds. I've traveled through a lot of states in Canada, traveled a lot through Saskatchewan, where they have a lot of cereals, and it's becoming a desert, It's I love the people who live there, but it's becoming a desert. And what's happening? So our fields, they're like roofs that are leaking. What are we doing? If there's a leak in the roof, we take a bucket and we put it under the leak, so it doesn't harm our floor. And then we have another leak. We put another bucket, and we keep on buying buckets. And then there are like these companies that say, "Oh, but I have a bigger bucket you can buy." Oh, cool! And then you get a bigger bucket. Oh, now we have a bucket that can empty itself. Like this robotic bucket. Oh, nice, cool. And now we have one in titanium. And now we have this bucket, and so you have this giant bucket industry. but nobody's fixing the roof. Because if you have a fixed roof, then the bucket industry will collapse. And a lot of people will lose their jobs, and a lot of shareholders will lose their profits. That's what they mostly are afraid of course. And that's not only with soil, but it's the same with human bodies. I know people who've been healthy for their entire life until they're like 86. They've never been sick. They've just eaten healthy their entire life. If you have a healthy body, the pharmaceutical industry, they hate you because they can't sell you anything. And it's the same with healthy soils. A healthy soil doesn't need any medication, doesn't need pesticides or chemical fertilizer. You have this natural system that just repairs itself. It's the same with humans. We have all the cells and all the bacteria and fungi inside of us to regenerate ourselves. We just have to create the good circumstances for it. So to answer your question, what is it that I'm doing? Well, I think one of the most concrete stuff that I'm doing a lot, is really regenerating land. So we look at land, we go and observe land for property owners who have problems, or want a nice garden, or want an entire farm, or want an entire island. Doesn't matter how big or how small it is. We go out there and observe it, looks what the soil needs, and then we actually look how can we work together with nature, so nature can do the job for you. I often say, why pay for it if you can get it for free? To give you an example, if you have flower strips every 60 meters in your fields of cereals or whatever you're growing, they have beetles inside of these that can walk 30 meters inside your field and 30 meters back, that will eat like a predator. They will eat all the bad guys on your crops. So have them work for you. And it's the same with that, but it's the same with birds you can attract. It's the same with soil. You just have to feed the bacteria and the fungi in the soil by using the right plants and the right combinations. And then the soil organisms will do the rest for you. Like, I'm not gonna say how you little fungi have to do your job. I'm just gonna feed you, and do your job. You've been here for millions of years, or even billions of years. You know what to do. I'm here only for about 100 years on planet Earth. You've been here for a billion of years. So who am I to teach you things? Who am I to think and to be arrogant and think that I have to interfere with anything? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna feed you. You do you, and that's exactly what we do. So we like an architect that designs houses, we design properties, ranging from paths to even landing strips for airplanes. But most of all, plants, of course, because that's our biggest know-how. Food forests, we love food forests, places that produce food and you don't have to do anything. Like I'm lazy, or I wouldn't say that I'm lazy, but I'm a lazy gardener because I travel a lot. I travel the world to design properties, to give keynotes, but also to make documentaries. And so I'm not at home super much, but every time that I come home, there is another crop that it's like giving me fruit because I planted them there with a good design. And even if I go for 1 year, that crop will still be there because it's a perennial plant. It's a plant that will probably outlive me because I have plants that will grow hundreds of years, some that only grow 50 years or 20 years. But the thing is, if you plant a tomato or corn, if you harvest it, it will not come back. But if you plant raspberry bushes or an apple tree or a nut tree, it will give you food for decades or even centuries. And if you're lucky, even for millennia. If you look at old olive trees that are more than 1,000 years old, you just plant them once and they keep on providing food. And if you look at it at a monetarily standpoint, it's actually the best investment you can do for your property, because the moment you build a new garage on your property or a pool house or a pool, it starts depreciating in value. So the second it's there, it's already less worth than the money you put into it, because it needs maintenance and it will go down in value. I'm not saying the entire property, but I'm going to say like the specific building. If you put a tree, you can put a tree that costs you $10, $20. You put it in there, this tree will grow, will grow, will grow, will grow, and every year it become more and more worth. Property values really skyrocket if you have more trees on it. There are even legal cases, for example, if somebody accidentally cuts down your tree, that have been up to 145,000 euros, which is about 150K dollars or 130K. I don't know the currency right now. It's a bit less Canadian right now. So a tree that's more worth than 100K per tree. That's incredible. If you buy big trees in a nursery, you can buy up to you can pay 50K, 100K for like a very huge tree. So plant them today, and it's like one of the best investments you can do.
One of the things that your work makes me think of is a lot of indigenous practices, certainly across North America, probably the world, but in the region where I live, I'm close to Toronto, which is part of the Carolinian region, and it's right on Lake Ontario. And in that region, it was an incredible food forest at the time of Western settlement with pawpaw trees and
Yeah.
really just incredible, meticulous attention. Again, lazy gardening, where you had this three-dimensional or tree-dimensional gardens where you had, you know, if the winter was especially harsh, then you could even get the lotus root, in the ponds. So a whole lot of depth to the food. And one of the things that's difficult is, well, first of all, we're paving over our best farmland. But second of all, when you look at harvesting, it's really hard to harvest complex growing things. So, for example, if you have just a monocrop of wheat, well, then it's easy to harvest that. If you have trees, or I mean, even I was looking at this apple tree the other day. It was just a wild apple tree at my friend's hobby farm, and I looked at it. It was huge, just massive. And I looked at, did a basic calculation of the volume of apples on the tree, and it was considerable. And I compared that to what you would see in a kind of a farm manicured tree, which is pruned for picking. And I thought, that's really interesting. There is so much more volume, mass of food on this wild tree than on these other trees. But there is a very real problem of how the heck do you pick those? So it seems to me that robotics may be part of the solution. I'm curious to what you think in terms of how you actually harvest these more complex food forest food gardens.
No, of course, it's a very valid question. And yeah, we've been lucky that we were selected to create a food forest strategy for the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. And so that was definitely one of the things we also explored. And the nice thing is, we have two options. Option one is people stop going to the fitness and just go start picking fruit, help a farmer like once a week for half a day or for a couple of hours. If everybody would do this, then we would get there. We would be much healthier. We would have less stress. We would have less chronic disease because we're in touch with nature, as long as the orchards haven't been sprayed, of course. So that's one part. That's like the non-tech part, and there are a lot of advantages in this, but it's also unrealistic in this current society and the way we look at this. I think it's perfectly possible, and I think it would be good for humanity if we would do it, but I'm not sure if everybody's there yet to do that. So I'm a huge lover of technology. I love technology, and I have seen the rise of robots that are becoming smarter and smarter, and it's just incredible. I have a friend, Carlo Mondavi, who is a wine grower who loves butterflies so much that he said, well, what can we do to save the butterflies? And he accidentally started a startup called Monarch Tractor, and now it's like one of the fastest growing tech startups. It's like the Tesla of the tractors. It's smart, it's electric, and it eliminates it can almost eliminate all pesticides because it's smart. It's crazy. So that's only one part, and it's not able to pick apples that type of tractor, but it's like able to do a lot of other stuff. But you see that other there are already drones that can pick apples, for example. They can like see, they sense when it's ripe, and then they like suction it and they take it and they let it drop down. These drones are even sometimes connected via a cable, so it's like it doesn't run out of juice to do it. You have smarter and smarter robots, and for example, the Boston Dynamic robots, those are like these walking dogs that you can like even push and they like don't fall over. They're becoming more and more incredible. So I'm 100% sure that it's going to be part of it. But let's also not forget that there are also a lot of people who are unable to perform in the regular working force, that have yeah, I'm not sure if it's politically incorrect to say a disability, or have less abilities, or like just cannot really function normally, but they also need a place to do something. And often the times we think of mega crazy expensive solutions that we can also like have people do that work that otherwise like don't have any chance in the workforce, who really are begging to do something useful, that they want to do something useful, but sometimes they don't find something. So we have to find a balance between that, between also we as a humans that need to move a little bit more, and between robotics. But yeah, I'm 100% pro using it, and I'm 100% sure also that artificial intelligence will help us to make these robots even smarter, to pick in very complex systems. And one of the robots that already exists today, that's super easy, that's for example the mulberry tree. You can just harvest the mulberry leaves already with regular pruning machines. It's been done for decades in China to create food for the silkworm. But these leaves are actually higher in protein than soybeans, for example. And it's a perennial, so it's much better for the soil than soybeans. So we don't, if you think about trees, don't only have to think about berries and nuts, but also at leaves, for example. Like our monkeys, our little brothers and sisters, the monkeys, they're not stupid, you know, they've been eating leaves for a long time. We kind of forgot this in the West. In the East, in Asia, they still use a lot of leaves, but we don't use them anymore. Mulberry leaves is a very delicious one. And you can make leaf concentrate out of it, leaf protein concentrate, and that's like a basic food such as tofu or such as soy meat, and you can use it to make hamburgers or like a gazillion different stuff.
So cool. So, okay, a whole bunch of things on my mind, but one of the things, this is a bit of a tangential thing, but monarch butterflies, uh, interesting because, you know, they start off in Canada, they go all the way down to Mexico, and then they go all the way back. But one of the most interesting things is that a typical monarch only lives for about, you know, a few weeks, except in the winter, right before the winter when they're making the trip back up, there's a special generation that's born every time, and they live 8 times longer than the other monarchs. Have you heard of this? This is so crazy to me. So you've got your monarchs, they're dying once a month, and then you have a special generation based on weather or whatever, and they live for 8 months, 8 times. I mean, that's as if, you know, in the Bible, they talk about, you know, Noah or whoever living to like 800 years old.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent. It's like in monarchs, that's actually true. They have generations that live 8 times longer than the others. So that's, I don't know where that goes in the conversation, but that's just a cool thing.
No, I'm happy you bring that up, and it is just one of these crazy things in nature that you think like how perfect and beautiful is. Like, how is it even possible? Like, it would be that our kids maybe would live, or maybe we would live 800 years because of we're the special generation to bridge something. Um, who knows? Let's see. But it's just amazing.
Yeah. So
But
amazing.
monarch butterflies are really in decline now. So because of pesticide usage, it's horrible. And yeah, so that's you know the symbol of the canary in the coal mine. They bring canaries in the coal mine to see how much oxygen there's still in the mine, and if it starts to die, then you know that you have to leave the mine. Well, monarch butterfly is like the canary in the coal mine, and that's the same with a lot of species. That if you see, well, if they're dying, we're gonna be next, and that's we see a lot of these canaries in the coal mine right now.
Yeah,
So
it seems
we have
like
to take care.
bad. It seems really bad. It seems like there are signs everywhere across all our systems that we're looking at maybe massive collapse. Not just like a few places with desertification or whatever. It seems like really big. So, okay, back to things like your island or some of the projects you're doing. I guess talk to me about at the individual level. We talked about, talk to your local MP. What are we asking our local MPs? Like, what is one of the big pushes that people should be making right now, to kind of take a step in the right direction that we need to be taking right now?
I think it's very simple, and it's the right not to be poisoned. We all have the right not to be poisoned. It's a basic human right. And I like to look at concrete examples of people who already done the work, so we can learn from them, be inspired by them. And I'm going to share the story of a guy, a farmer from Italy, who lives in the Italian Alps, and he suddenly got the message, yeah, you cannot sell your products organic anymore, because he was an organic farmer, because we've found traces of pesticides on them. And the farmer was like, oh my God, if I lose my label, then I lose everything and I have to move away, or I'm going to lose my farm. And then he's like, yeah, but it's really not okay that we're spreading so much pesticides. It's an apple region. And if I don't know if you or your listeners have ever been to an apple growing region, but there if you're outside, it just reeks of pesticides. Like, I sometimes have to go to apple regions and I hate it, because you just breathe in the pesticides. Like, if you're walking or driving your bicycle or even opening your car window, it's just horrible. I really feel sorry for people who live there. And the what was the question again?
We were talking about pesticides. We were talking about what we should be asking our
Oh, we
politicians
should be asking.
to
Okay,
do, right, not to be poisoned.
the guy, actually, the farmer from Italy actually came together with local pharmacists and say, okay, what are we gonna do? And they say, okay, let's do it simple. Let's create just a town hall meeting where the pharmacist, who of course is a highly educated person, created this beautiful presentation and just said, okay, so these are the pesticides that farmers are using, and that's are all the effects they have on the water, on the wildlife, but also on you and on your children. And a lot of people, they just don't know, like, nobody teaches you this. I didn't learn this at school. And all the people were like, oh my God, we are really poisoning ourselves. And then they actually put it to a vote and said, okay, who is in favor of just banning pesticides in the entire valley? And they did a vote, and the majority said, well, yeah, we don't want to poison our kids. And so they did this referendum kind of thing, and then they banned pesticides, and they did it in a very friendly way with the farmers, because farmers are not the enemy. And in the beginning, when I started my journey, I thought that farmers were actually the enemy, because they are the ones that spraying pesticides. But they're pushed there by a system. They're pushed there by being in a lot of debt, and so they did it really in collaboration with farmers. Okay, how can we do this? And so the guy who started this revolution, the peaceful revolution, is still friends with like all the farmers of the entire valley. There's like only one farmer that still refuses to speak with him, but that's still a very high achievement to make such a shift, and still be friends with the farmers, because it could have turned very ugly as well if you're like too hostile. And that's one of the most important parts. Farmers are our friends, our allies. Even I call farmers the superheroes of our future, because they are on the front lines. They're the first ones impacted by global warming, by biodiversity loss, by soil degradation, by erosion, by floods, by fires. So they are our true heroes, and we need to support them all the ways possible we can. So this is something we need to do together, and it's also something that farmers will be better off by abandoning the usage of pesticides. And the good news is that we can have yields as good as we would have normally, because the thing is, we should not look and that's maybe another thing to go more in detail in later on, we should not be looking at how much tons per hectare, but how much nutrition per hectare. Nutrient density is the word here, but I'm going to park this for now. So the question is, what should you do? Inform the people, inform the people that live in your street, inform your local politicians. I talk with ministers of agriculture and I tell them things that they didn't know. I was like, oh my God, you're a minister of agriculture. How is it possible you don't know this? Not in a bad way, of course, because you cannot know anything, but we really need to voice, be that other voice than the paid storytellers, the paid lobbyists. We really need to be that other voice.
So, yeah, I totally agree with that. That is brilliant, and I love that. And, you know, when I have sort of talked with people about this, they say things like you mentioned earlier, like, "Wow, we could never feed the world if we didn't have pesticides and whatever." So, what are some of the methods that you and the people you talk to have found where you can have yields that are decent? And we can get into nutritional density as well. I think that's a huge important point as well.
Yeah, so um, nutrient density is looking not about what's the tomato, how big is the tomato, but what's in the tomato. And there is a very cool laboratory in Boston, Massachusetts, United States, called Edacious, and they are currently testing a lot of plants, a lot of products, milk, meat, to check the difference in nutritional density. And for example, they've seen that if a cow is on a meadow for its entire life and has healthy grasses and herbs and leaves they can eat, um, they test it on so many different levels, like the omegas, the vitamins. It's like incredible how much points they can all measure. And then they measure the milk that comes from cows that are just inside for their entire lives or in the CAFO, and just get soy or corn, which is actually not made for a cow. A cow like really gets sick if it eats too much soy and corn. It just should eat grass and should live on a meadow outside. That's what a cow is meant to do. That everything is much slower. It's like comparing a Rolls Royce with a beaten up car that's 80 years old, you know? Um, the quality of it. So and it's deceiving because you see two bottles of milk, they more or less look the same, but it's what's inside of it. And the problem is right now we cannot measure this because those tests are super expensive. But this lab, Edacious in Boston, actually wants to bring that costs down to like a very low price, that it's like, yeah, maybe one day we'll be able to grab our phones and just like have a sensor in the phone and it will check the nutrient density. In an ideal world, we'd have this. So the moment that testing becomes way cheaper, then the commodity market is really gonna shiver, because you won't just have grains anymore. You're gonna have super grains, and then you have like bullshit grains. And then it's not like, oh my God, I have so much tons per hectare, but I don't care. Like all these kilograms, they're just water, water with a taste. And so that's a super important part.
Yeah, that's huge. I think ubiquitous measurement of anything important is one of the keys to a kind of expansionary human centric future, which is what I think I'm about and a lot of people would be okay with, you know? So, okay, we need to measure things. Okay, brass tacks. How do typical farmers, a conventional farmer, what is a process of moving towards something like organic or something like better yet regenerative? What does something like that look like?
Yeah, I love the question, and that's something that we've been training farmers with this information. I'm just going to give you some anecdotal or some like basic things you can do. So there's like an entire menu card, of course. One of the first things is, of course, know who you are, what are your strengths, what is your dream life as a farmer, and build a farm around your context. I know people that are pig farmers, but in their hearts they're actually crop farmers, but circumstances have pushed them inside a certain direction. So really know what's your passion. I'm never gonna start a pig farm, but I am one day gonna start a walnut farm to make walnut oil. For example, why I love walnuts. I love walnut oil. I'm addicted to it. I could sell walnut oil to everybody because I love it so much. But I'm not gonna be able to sell pig meat, let's say. So it's just like my passion. So that's one of the most important parts. And then of course it all starts with the soil. And one of the most important things we always teach farmers is feed soil life. So like don't put food on the ground, but feed the soil life so they can feed the plants. It's not your job to feed the plants. That's a misconception. There is enough nutrients in all the soils in the entire world to keep on farming forever. If you don't believe me, look back when the earth started, it was just one rock. Soil did not exist. Soil was created by fungi, bacteria, plants and animals working together and constantly dying to create layers of soil. So we have to fast forward this. And one of the coolest things to do is use cover crops and green manures between your crops. So I'm gonna give you an example of a farmer who harvests their crop with a machine. At the same time, when harvesting, at the rear end of their tractor, they're already direct seeding a green manure. And a green manure, I'm not talking about just like one thing. I'm not going to talk about mustard seed or phacelia. No, I'm talking about at least 6 different botanical families. That's not 6 different plants, but 6 different botanical families, such as the Phacelia the Asteraceae, the Brassicaceae, and so on. 6 different families. And in an ideal world, 10, 12 different plants. Why? Because every plant is creating food for themselves. Remember, taking CO2 from the air, water from the soil, mixing it together to create sugars, to create pancake dough, and injecting up to 40% into the soil to feed soil life. And in exchange, getting food from the soil life. Imagine, Tyler, if you would give me pancakes every day. I will become to love you and also to protect you. If there would be like other guys trying to intimidate you or to bully you, I would like be, hey, I'm gonna protect you, Tyler. He's my pancake guy. I'm gonna do everything I can to protect you. But I'm also gonna make sure that you would have more time during the day, so you can bake more pancakes for me and also for my friends, because I have a lot of friends and they would also like pancakes. So I'm gonna do everything I can to make your life easier so you can bake even more pancakes. And it's the same thing with plants. So these microorganisms, they really make sure that the soil is softer and there are more holes in the soil so the roots can go down much easier. If the roots go down much easier, the plant will grow bigger. It will produce more pancake dough. It will inject more pancake dough into the soil so the microorganisms can invite all their friends and families to also come. And they will also protect them against bullies. And the problem is, because we make our soil so dead, because of all the pesticides we use, only the bad guys are able to survive there. But if you take a good soil, and it's the same with society, if you create a healthy society that's like catered for good people and good guys, let's say, the bad guys are really in a minority and they keep the bad guys in check. It's the same in the soil. The bad guys really are in a minority. So pest and disease, everybody's like always, oh, microorganisms, they're bad. No, the bad guys are really in small numbers. So if you have a good situation, they're outnumbered anyway. So that's only one thing. So then after a couple of months, when you want to sow the next crop, you go in with a roller faca or a roller crimper. You like crush this biomass you've just created, and that's tons per hectare you can create with this green manure. You just like rupture it, break it down a little bit. Don't till it into the soil, just like put it on the soil. And with the same movement, you sow in the next crop. And ideally, it's not just one crop, but like a polyculture of crops. You can then, after the tractor pass, you have to wait a couple of months again until your crop is beautiful. And then you go in again, you harvest that crop, and at the same time, again, sowing in those green manures. So this time you're constantly feeding the soil and also making the soil better and better. So that's one of the best things you can do to prevent disease. another cool thing to do is you, for example, have a crop, and 5% of that crop is an early blooming variety, and 95% of that crop is a late blooming variety. So the first 5% will come up. It will be attacked by the bad guys, but then the good guys will come in, because you have flowering strips and also hedgerows that you plant, also an important part, and also some water bodies throughout the farms. So the good guys will come eat the bad guys. So then the good guys will grow, and then the 95% will come of the late blooming variety, and then they won't be attacked anymore because the good guys are now outnumbering the bad guys. The funny thing is, because you need good guys, you also need bad guys, and that's a total mind shift. So we actually have hedgerows or plants that will feed the bad guys year round. So year round you'll have the bad guys. Why? Because you need the good guys. The good guys need something to feed on, and that's an entire mind shift. So these are only a couple of things you can do, and I can like go through a very much longer and much more detailed menu card. But these are maybe one more thing, and that's the usage of temporary grasslands. So you've had your crops for, let's say, 5 to 7 years, and then it's good to let your soil rest for a little bit. Of course, you need a crop rotation. Never have 7 years of the same crop. Most of people know this by now. But have after 5 to 7 years, have 2 years of temporary grassland that you just put in a grass mix, and preferably also some herbs, and then you use it to graze animals, or you use it to make hay. So it still produces, but this will actually like clean the soil, and then you just sculpt it off, and then you can start over again. And that's like a very simple, I think 10 minutes tutorial on how to start a regenerative organic farm, because organic is not enough. Regenerative is also not enough. It needs to be regenerative organic.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that if it's not regenerating, then you're still part of the problem.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of. But it's not per se that you are causing the problem. It's just you're part of a bigger problem, and you're just a cog in a machine that you never like chose to be in. And they're
Yeah,
constantly
I agree. I don't
manipulating
think it's
you.
perfect.
They're constantly manipulating you as a farmer. They're trying to make you scared. They're saying, yeah, but if you're not spraying now, you're going to lose all your crops, and then you won't have an income. You won't be able to send your kids to school. It's a very, scary thing, farming.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's like legitimately very hard. I mean, the level of proficiency that we've gotten to it with farming and just farming in general, it's not an easy thing. And I think that we need more people who are spreading the good word. Other things that I mean, you have this thing that your what's it called? Your 10 Lives Festival. Tell me a bit about that.
Cool. Yeah. So, a lot of people have climate anxiety. They want to do something for the climate, or they want to help nature. They want to be part of the solution. But a lot of the time, people don't know what they can do. It's, of course, easy for me to say, well, let's go just and ring a couple of doorbells and say you want to plant some trees with your local municipality and form a little group. And it takes a lot of courage to do something like that. And not everybody's made to do that. So we're actually making it easy for people to do. We just have a very beautiful but degraded land in Portugal, Europe right now, where we're gonna invite a couple of thousands of people that can come to a festival. But instead of just partying and drinking for 5 days in a row, which is not very productive, and can get boring in my opinion, you work for 5 days during the day, that you plant trees, you make swells, and at the end of the day, you party. There's going to be electronic dance music, DJs, healthy food, and it's very accessible to everybody. So it's not like a hippie thing we're doing. It's also not like a snobbish thing we're doing. It's like something very accessible for everybody that want to be part of the solution, where people can also meet people who are in the same boat, because more than 80% actually is afraid of global warming and also wants to do something about it, but like is afraid to talk about it, or just doesn't know what to do. And there we just want to connect people who want to be part of the solution. And it's hard to get depressed if you plant a tree and watch it grow every day. You know, it's one of the best antidotes against depression is watching something grow that you've planted. It's like, oh my God, this tree has like suffered severe storms. It's like has been attacked by beetles. The tree has all the reasons to be depressed, but it's still growing. Who am I to complain? And that's like a crazy mind shift that you can make.
Yeah, I love that. I interviewed some people on plant signaling and behavior, and that's a fascinating realm of study where we're realizing that there's a lot more going on under the hood with communication, fighting off disease. Um, it really quite complex. So yeah, I love that. So okay, so that's is that happening sometime in the near
But
future?
yeah,
Or when are you looking to launch?
yeah, we're gonna have our first edition, not this autumn, but the autumn of 2026. So yeah, it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be big. We're also gonna start a crowdfunding very soon. So definitely follow us on 10 Lives. For that, we're available on LinkedIn and Instagram and all social media.
Love that. Any closing thoughts? I'm so pleased that you were able to take the time. I really great conversation. But anything that you'd like people to know, or just planting seeds, as it were,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
whatever
of
seed would you
course.
like to plant? Just
Yeah. Well,
final
well,
thought.
well, well. I've done a lot of work the last 12 years or 13 years, let's say, or even longer. And I've done a journey that's like super privileged to meet so many interesting people. And with the book that I've just written, SOS Save Our Soils, it's the entire journey in this one book, and it's super easy readable. So I really would advise everybody to read it and share it, give it as a gift to other people, because even a 10-year-old can understand it. Food is something that's so important for everybody. And once you understand it, you also cannot go back. So don't read the book if you're not ready to make a change, because once you realize what's going on, how the farming world looks and how the food world looks, then you have to do something about it, or in your own household or around you. And then my final word is start small. You know, start with, if you go to the supermarket, get one product organic, for example. Start by buying organic peanut butter instead of the non-organic peanut butter. If everybody would already do that, then non-organic peanut butter would not exist anymore. Start by going to a local farmers market. Speak to the farmers if you have that ability, if they're close to you. And a very easy to do thing to do is like get a Netflix subscription to a farm. You know, you pay the farm like, yeah, a couple of yeah, 10, 20, $30 per month, depending on how much people you are in your family. And it will just give you a basket with what's ripe in the season, and you don't have to think about what to buy anymore. You go less to the supermarket and you actually spend less, because most of the time you spend too much money on Pringles or Oreos or other things that actually are super expensive and you don't really need. And this way you like, it's convenient. We love convenience. You know, we're built to to have convenience, and that's just super convenient. Just make sure you have your like food packets per week, and that's like super easy.
I love it. Louis, the work you're doing is inspiring, and it's something that certainly gets me thinking, and it gets my wheels turning. So, thank you so much for the work that you do. I'm looking forward to reading your book, SOS Save Our Soils. And yeah, I just want to thank you really for your time and the work that you do in the world.
Fantastic. Very happy to be here, Tyler.
Wonderful. Well, hey, have a great day, and until next time, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.